My own daughter called 911 on me for trespassing into my own house. I stood on the front lawn barefoot, holding the keys I'd owned for nearly 30 years, while the red and blue lights pulsed across my face. Neighbors lingered behind curtains. Some even stepped onto their porches, whispering. 2 officers approached slowly. Calm, professional, but guarded. Behind them, Celeste trembled. Her fingers twisting the fabric of her sweater. Tears clinging to her lashes. And standing just behind her, with one hand resting, protectively, on her shoulder, was Jonah. "Officers," he said in that cool, controlled voice. "This man keeps entering the property without permission. My fiancé is terrified. He refuses to leave. My fiancé. My property. My house." I lifted my keys. "This is my home," I said. Jonah exhaled a soft, pitying laugh, the kind people use when they want you to look unstable. "Ray, you need to stop showing up like this. This isn't your environment anymore." His tone wasn't sympathetic. It was ownership. Celeste flinched at his words. Her eyes flickering toward me with a brief flash of guilt. As if a part of her wondered whether she'd made a mistake. But Jonah squeezed her shoulder. And that moment vanished. The officer nearest me asked gently. "Sir, do you have ID? Something proving residency?" I reached for my wallet with hands I tried to keep steady. As I did, Jonah leaned toward Celeste and whispered, not softly enough. He wandered again. He doesn't remember things clearly anymore. My jaw tightened. Celeste's eyes shimmered with conflict. But she didn't correct him. She didn't defend me. She believed him. And that hurt more than the lights, the stairs, the officers. But none of them knew what happened hours earlier. I wasn't trespassing. I had returned to the house to grab old tax documents from my study, documents I needed for an upcoming appointment. But when I entered the code into the alarm panel, it screamed. The code had been changed. I stepped inside anyway. Furniture shifted. Photos replaced. My reading chair missing. The house looked like someone was slowly erasing every trace of me. Then I heard Jonah upstairs, talking on the phone, cheerful and relaxed. "It's almost done. He won't be here much longer. Once he signs the papers, the house is ours." Ours. My blood froze. He had no claim to that house. No investment. No right. But the confidence in his voice chilled me. "Celeste thinks he's declining, so she won't fight it," he continued. "Just a few more steps and he's out." I stepped into view. Jonah hung up immediately. But he didn't look startled. He looked irritated, like I'd interrupted a meeting. "You can't just show up unannounced, Ray," he said. "This place isn't suited for you anymore." My place. Not suited for me. I tried to respond, but he pulled out his phone and walked past me, dialing. 10 minutes later, Celeste arrived, shaking, confused, clinging to every word Jonah fed her. 20 minutes after that. The police. 3 months earlier, after losing my wife Marlene, loneliness hollowed me out. Celeste begged me to move into their suburban home in Norton Hills, until you're steady again. I trusted her. Maybe grief dulled my instincts. Jonah started small. "Ray, you took your pills already." I hadn't. "Ray, you told us that story yesterday." I didn't. "Ray, you misplaced things a lot lately." I didn't. Every lie made Celeste look at me differently. With concern instead of certainty. Then items vanished. My glasses. Receipts. Prescription bottles. A folder of property documents. Gone. Always gone. Jonah always had the same explanation. "Don't stress. It's age." It happens. And Celeste, exhausted from her nursing shifts, believed every word. Next came the cameras. Small ones. Hidden well. Angles pointed not at entrances, but at me. Then came the envelope. Addressed to me. Delivered to Jonah's house. County Property Office. Homeowner verification request. Filed by Jonah Covington. He was already checking how to transfer, refinance, or claim access to my house. Just helping you with paperwork, he said when confronted. But his eyes were cold with calculation. A woman from county services knocked on the door days later. Concerned tone. Clipboard. Official badge. We received an anonymous report that you may be experiencing confusion and unsafe wandering, she said. Anonymous. But Jonah stepped in before I could speak. He wandered outside at 3 a.m. Didn't know where he was. We're worried he can't manage independently. A complete lie. Said with absolute calm. Celeste covered her mouth, horrified. Her eyes begged me to deny it. But Jonah had rehearsed too well. Too precisely. He wasn't improvising. He was building a file. A case. A narrative. One that made my own daughter doubt the man who raised her. That night, long before the 911 call, I opened the fireproof lockbox I'd kept with me since Marlene died. Inside were the deed, tax records, insurance documents, closing papers, and one detail Jonah never imagined existed. A protective clause Marlene and I added. Legally binding the house entirely to me. Until the day I die. No one could transfer it. No one could refinance it. No one could claim ownership. Without my explicit, notarized consent. Jonah thought I was slipping. Jonah thought grief made me weak. Jonah thought the house was already his. But what Jonah didn't know, what would soon destroy his entire plan, was this. He wasn't the only one keeping records. The morning after the 911 call, I sat in the guest room of their home. The room that used to feel temporary. And now felt like a cage Jonah redecorated. I didn't sleep. Every time my eyes closed, I saw Celeste's face from last night. Pale, trembling, hiding behind Jonah's shoulder. Not because she feared me, but because she no longer trusted her own judgment. That was the first sign she wasn't gone. A hairline fracture. A crack. Small. But real. At 7 a.m. sharp, Jonah knocked once and walked in before I could answer. He always walked in. He leaned against the doorframe with that quiet confidence people mistake for leadership. Arms folded, chin raised, eyes cold but polite. "Ray," he said. "We need some boundaries." Boundaries. Like I was some wandering problem. Not a father who'd just been reported for trespassing into his own home. "That little stunt yesterday can't happen again," he added casually. Little stunt. Standing on my own front lawn as police questioned me. Neighbors watching. My daughter too shaken to speak. A stunt. I stared back at him without blinking. He shifted, annoyed by the silence. "You can't just come and go. It confuses Celeste. It confuses you." There it was. The dagger wrapped in silk. I didn't respond. Silence is power when a man expects fear. Jonah sighed dramatically. "We should talk about a senior living community," he said. Structure. Routine. Medication management. It would take pressure off everyone. I tightened my grip on the notebook in my lap. That was the moment I understood his real strategy. He didn't just want my house. He wanted me legally declared incompetent. Somewhere, safe, out of the way. Where signatures could be collected quietly. With no witnesses. He didn't need me dead. He needed me managed. Later that morning, Celeste walked into the room holding a tray of breakfast. Her hands shook as she set it on the nightstand. "Dad," she whispered. "Can we talk?" Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away. The fear wasn't of me. It was of what she'd been told about me. "About last night?" I asked. She swallowed. "Jonah said. You forgot the alarm code. That you wandered in without calling. That you seemed confused." Her voice cracked on that last word. I held her gaze. "Celeste," I said softly. "When have I ever forgotten an alarm code? In 30 years? She blinked, once, twice. Like trying to push through a fog someone else built around her. I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know what's real anymore." There it was. The fracture widening. Celeste wasn't the villain. She was drowning in a narrative Jonah designed. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Then footsteps sounded in the hallway. "Jonah." Celeste tensed instantly. Shoulders up, breath shallow. The reflex of someone living beside a fuse. And that was my second sign. She wasn't blindly loyal. She was quietly frightened. That afternoon, Jonah called me downstairs. "I picked up something for you at the pharmacy," he said. Placing a white paper bag on the counter. Inside was a bottle. Generic. Unlabeled except for a cheap sticker. "Daily cognitive support, take 1 tablet." I stared at it. "What is this?" I asked. He smiled, thin, practiced. "Just something to help you stay clear. A beat. We don't want any more incidents." I set the bottle down slowly. This wasn't medication. This was documentation. A breadcrumb for a future claim. "Look, doctor, he's already on cognitive support. He needs more help. He's declining." I didn't touch it. Jonah's smile twitched at the edges. "What?" he asked softly. "You don't trust me?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Ray. Not a threat. A blueprint." That night, after midnight, I stepped into the hallway quietly. The cameras Jonah installed blinked with small red lights. Always recording. But something on the hallway table caught my eye. A stack of printed screenshots. Dozens. All of me. Sleeping. Walking. Reading. Sitting alone. No exterior doors. No windows. No security relevance. He didn't install cameras for safety. He installed cameras for leverage. To build a case. To document decline. To manufacture evidence. He wasn't acting on impulse. He was preparing. A legal move was coming. And that meant something else. He feared paperwork. More than he feared me. That was his blind spot. And my advantage. The next morning, someone knocked on the door. Not police. Not neighbors. Not social workers. A woman in a navy blazer holding a leather-bound folder. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Megan Price, from the Norton Hills Title and Property Office. I'm here following up on a transfer inquiry." Jonah's reaction was immediate. Too immediate. His eyes widened. Jaw tightened. Voice brittle. "There must be a mistake. We didn't schedule anything." Megan smiled politely. "The inquiry wasn't scheduled," she said. "It was filed." Then she turned to me. "Mr. Hale, you requested clarification regarding ownership, correct?" I felt Jonah's stare burning into me. Confused. Shaken. Realizing, finally. While he was staging confusion, I was tracking paper. While he was building lies, I was building a case. While he was preparing to erase me, I was preparing to expose him. As Megan stepped inside, opening her folder, Jonah finally understood. He wasn't the only one documenting everything. And mine wasn't a story built on fear. It was built on truth. A truth he'd never be able to outrun. Megan Price stepped into the living room like a lawyer entering a deposition. Upright posture, calm eyes, leather-bound folder tucked against her hip. Jonah tried to seize control instantly. "Actually, we don't need to do this right now," he said, too quickly. His tone was smooth, but the panic underneath made it crack. Megan didn't even give him the courtesy of a glance. "I wasn't asking," she said. "This concerns Mr. Hale." Behind her, on the staircase, Celeste stood frozen mid-step. She wasn't watching Megan. She wasn't watching me. She was watching Jonah. And for the first time, the doubt in her eyes wasn't a flicker. It was a flame. "Mr. Hale," Megan said as she opened her folder. "You requested verification on the status of your property deed. I have the full chain of title here." She paused, letting the weight settle. "Before I continue, I need to confirm something. Did you authorize anyone to inquire about, modify, transfer, or refinance your home in the past 6 months?" I looked at Jonah, deliberately, steadily. "No," I said. "My signature doesn't go anywhere without me." Jonah forced a thin smile. "This is what I'm talking about," he said to Megan. "He doesn't remember." Megan cut in, sharp as a gavel. "Mr. Covington, I am speaking to the homeowner." "Homeowner." The word snapped like a whip through the room. Celeste flinched. Jonah's jaw tightened. And for a breath, you could feel the entire house recalibrate. Megan continued, unfazed. "We have record of 3 separate inquiries on this property recently. All coming from this address." Jonah inhaled sharply, a tell he couldn't hide. Megan laid 3 printed documents on the coffee table. A refinance inquiry. A title modification attempt. An eligibility request for assisted living transition housing. Celeste frowned. "Assisted, what?" Jonah pounced too fast. "Celeste, don't overreact. These were just—" "Say it," she snapped. "Just what?" This time, Jonah didn't answer. Because Megan was watching him now. Not professionally, but suspiciously. And Celeste could see it. Megan turned another page. "There's something else. One of the submissions included your father's signature." Celeste stiffened. Jonah swallowed. My stomach tightened. Megan held up the copy. "It wasn't my signature. It wasn't even close." The loops drooped. The spacing wobbled. The strokes trembled like someone impersonating an elderly man. Celeste whispered. "Dad, did you sign this?" I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on Jonah. "No," I said softly. "And he knows that." Jonah opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He stepped toward Megan, desperate. "Look, he's mixed up. He forgets things. He's been—" Celeste's voice cut through him like a blade. "Stop." It was the strongest word she'd spoken in weeks. "You told me he wandered outside. You told me he forgot conversations. You told me he triggered the alarm code. You told me he was declining." Her voice trembled. "Did you lie to me?" Jonah raised his hands, palms open, the manipulator's pose. "Celeste, you're emotional. Don't," she warned. "Don't you dare." This was the moment her loyalty cracked for good. I closed my notebook and stood. "Ms. Price," I said calmly. "I'd like to dispute any unauthorized inquiries. And I want my property title flagged against tampering. Megan nodded. I can file that today. Once flagged, nothing can be changed without your notarized approval. Jonah froze. His plan, months of manipulation, groundwork, false reports, collapsed in a single sentence. Celeste stared at him like he was a stranger. Because he was. As Megan packed up her folder, Jonah's phone buzzed. He glanced down. His face drained of color. He turned the phone screen away. But not before I caught a glimpse. Bank alert, unusual activity detected. He stiffened. Sweat gathered at his hairline. The panic wasn't subtle. Celeste saw it. Jonah, what was that? Nothing, he said quickly. Work. But his breathing gave him away. Now I knew. It wasn't just property paperwork he tampered with. He was reaching into my accounts. Megan's eyes narrowed. She saw it too. Mr. Covington, she said, voice flat. You should be very careful. Unauthorized activity on property titles is a criminal offense. Jonah's eyes flicked up at me. Anger, fear, hatred all tangled together. Nothing you say can change what's already been filed, Megan added. And with that, she stepped out the door. As the door closed behind her, Jonah turned to me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he didn't bother pretending. He looked at me with raw, unfiltered rage. Because now he understood. I wasn't confused. I wasn't slipping. I wasn't alone. I was fighting back. And I had just opened the door to every lie he thought he'd buried. After Megan Price left, the house didn't just go quiet. It stilled, like the air was holding its breath. Jonah stood near the front door, jaw tight, fists coiled at his sides. Not from fear. But from the humiliation of being seen for the first time. Celeste hovered behind him, arms wrapped around herself, eyes darting between the two of us as if watching a storm form in real time. Jonah broke first. You're doing this on purpose, he hissed. You're trying to turn her against me. I stared at him calmly. I don't have to, I said. You've been doing that yourself. That single line was the match. His polite, rehearsed smile, the one he'd worn for months, slid off his face like wet paint. You think this is over, he snapped. You think some county clerk scares me? The sharpness in his voice made Celeste flinch. This was the real Jonah. The one he kept buried beneath charm and polish. And now he couldn't put the mask back on fast enough. Celeste stepped forward, voice trembling but clearer than before. Jonah, you told me my dad was forgetting entire conversations. Her eyes welled. But I'm starting to realize, it wasn't him forgetting. She let out a shaky breath. It was me forgetting what you said. Because you kept rewriting everything. Jonah's head whipped toward her. Celeste. No, she whispered, backing up. I need to know the truth. Her voice cracked on the last word. The spell he'd woven around her for months was thinning. Hours later, after Jonah stormed out for air, I went into the office he had taken over. He'd always kept the file cabinet locked. But not today. Inside were 4 folders with my name. R. Hale, Financial. R. Hale, Medical. R. Hale, Accounts. And a 4th folder I hadn't seen before. Future Planning, R. Hale. My stomach dropped. Inside were brochures for memory care centers. All circled. All dated months before I moved in. My hands went cold. He'd been planning this narrative. My decline. My confusion. My incompetence. Long before he ever convinced Celeste to invite me into their home. This wasn't spontaneous manipulation. This was premeditated erasure. Under the brochures was something worse. A pre-filled online transfer request. $18,000. From my savings to an account I didn't recognize. Incomplete. But attempted. The same unusual activity alert I saw on Jonah's phone. My throat tightened. He wasn't just targeting my house. He was targeting everything. All while making me look too confused to manage money. And Celeste. He was rewriting her reality one whispered lie at a time. When Jonah returned, I held the folder in my hands. He froze at the sight of it. His face went blank. But not the calm kind. The kind predators wear when the hunt collapses. I lifted the transfer form. You tried to access my accounts. Jonah stepped forward, too quickly. Celeste instinctively moved between us. Jonah, tell me that isn't what it looks like. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Listen, both of you are misinterpreting things, he said. His voice was strained, cracking at the edges. I was organizing. No, I said quietly. You were stealing. His hand twitched toward the folder. Not to take it. But like he wanted to rip it apart. A flash of real violence. Small. Controlled. But unmistakable. Celeste gasped. Jonah, stop. He froze. His chest rose and fell. His pupils flicked wildly. He wasn't holding the mask anymore. He was holding himself back from lunging. You lied to me, she whispered. Her voice broke. You lied about my dad. You lied about his memory. You lied about who you really are. Tears fell down her cheeks. And I let you. I let you make me doubt him. Jonah reached for her. She stepped back. Hard. He stared at her hand recoiling like it physically hurt him. It did. To men like Jonah, rejection is an injury. Then. A knock. Firm. Authoritative. I opened the door. Officer Rowan. The same officer from the 911 call. Mr. Hale, he said. Something about last night's report didn't sit right. I'd like to clear up a few things. Jonah's fingers twitched violently against his thigh. A rapid rhythm he couldn't stop. He wasn't afraid of Rowan. He was terrified of what Rowan represented. A witness. An outsider. Someone he couldn't manipulate. Rowan stepped inside calmly. Let's talk about that call, he said. And who exactly reported what? Jonah's knees nearly buckled. His last line of defense was crumbling in front of him. As Rowan opened his notebook, Jonah slowly realized something devastating. He hadn't just lost the narrative. He'd just become the investigation. Officer Rowan stepped inside and closed the door behind him with a quiet click. It wasn't loud. It wasn't forceful. But the sound drained the remaining color from Jonah's face. A witness had entered the scene. One he couldn't charm or control. Rowan turned to me. Mr. Hale, I'd like to go over the 911 call from last night. Something in the report didn't align with what we observed. Jonah jumped in instantly. There's nothing to go over. He's exaggerating. Celeste was frightened. Rowan didn't even look his way. I reviewed the recording. Jonah's jaw tightened. A small, rapid pulse beat in his temple. Celeste blinked. Recording? Rowan nodded. Yes. And the caller wasn't your father. He turned slowly toward Jonah. It was you. Jonah's throat bobbed. He tried to speak, but his voice stuck. Celeste pressed a hand to her mouth. You called. You told me he was confused and forcing entry. Jonah's voice broke through, stuttering. I was trying to protect you. I thought. You thought what? Celeste whispered. That lying to me would make me safer. Rowan flipped a page on his clipboard. Mr. Covington, you reported Mr. Hale as disoriented, aggressive, and attempting to harm himself. He lifted a brow. But body cam footage shows him standing calmly on his own porch. Jonah's fingers tightened on the edge of the table. Knuckles whitening. Until the wood began to creak. A barely restrained violence. The first true glimpse of who he really was. You told me he forgot conversations, Celeste whispered. You told me he wandered for hours. You told me he was becoming unsafe. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were sharp. I built every fear I had around your words. And now? I don't know which memories are mine. And which ones you put there. Jonah's mouth opened in disbelief. Celeste, I was supporting you. No, she said. You were using me. You didn't just lie to me. You used me to hurt him. That one line shattered whatever illusion Jonah still held. His face twisted, not in sadness, not in guilt. But in rage. Mr. Covington, Rowan said, folding his arms. We also reviewed the footage from last night. You were coaching your fiancé on what to say. Celeste stared at Jonah, horrified. You told me exactly what to say. Word for word. Jonah snapped. It was to help you, you panic, I have to. Rowan shook his head. That's not help. That's coercion. Jonah froze. That word hit him like a slap. Because he knew exactly what it implied. Before Rowan could continue, my phone buzzed. Mr. Hale. This is Linda from Eastview Credit Union. We're calling about several weeks of suspicious activity on your account. Weeks. Not days. Weeks. Jonah's breath hitched. Linda continued. Someone has been attempting logins for the past 6 weeks. Password resets. Unusual IP addresses. And one attempted transfer that we thankfully blocked. 6 weeks. Meaning. Jonah wasn't spiraling. He'd been planning. Methodically. I glanced at Jonah. His eyes were wide, haunted. The look of a predator caught with blood on his hands. Linda asked. Did you authorize anyone else to access your accounts? I answered, clear and loud. No. Please open a fraud case. Linda confirmed. We'll be sending a representative shortly. I hung up. The silence afterward was crushing. Jonah's breathing became erratic. He looked cornered. But not in the way victims do. He looked cornered the way dangerous people do. Celeste turned to him slowly. You tried to steal from my father. Jonah snapped. But not loudly. Quiet. Cold. Deadly. You don't understand what pressure I'm under, he whispered. You don't understand what this family cost. Your father was in the way. He made everything harder. His jaw clenched so tight I heard the faint click of teeth. That sound chilled the room. Officer Rowan's expression changed immediately. Because that wasn't panic. That was resentment. Intent. Motivation. I walked to the coffee table, gathered the folders labeled. R. Hale, Financial. R. Hale, Medical. R. Hale, Accounts. Future Planning, R. Hale. I handed them directly to Rowan. I'd like to file a formal report, I said calmly. For attempted financial exploitation, fraudulent representation, and unauthorized access of personal records. Jonah's face went chalk white. You can't do this, he whispered. You have no idea what you're starting. I met his eyes. I'm not starting something, I said softly. I'm stopping you. Jonah didn't look outraged. He didn't even look embarrassed. For the first time since he walked into our lives. He looked afraid. Because this wasn't an argument. This was evidence. And Jonah had just realized. He wasn't losing control. He was being caught. The house felt smaller after the fraud report. Like the walls themselves were pulling in, listening. Jonah sat on the far end of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the carpet. His chest didn't rise. Didn't fall. He didn't blink. A terrifying, unnatural stillness. Not panic. Not fear. Decision. Celeste edged closer to me without realizing it, instinct taking over. And Rowan stood just inside the doorway, casually observant. But with the posture of a man who had seen this pattern before. A predator cornered. A story collapsing. A mask about to drop. A knock rattled the silence. I opened the door to reveal a woman in a charcoal blazer. Linda Tremaine. Eastview Credit Union. Even her presence made Jonah's shoulders stiffen. She lay her briefcase on the coffee table and opened a folder. "Mr. Hale," she said, tone crisp. "These suspicious login attempts didn't begin recently." She tapped the page. "They began 6 weeks ago and continued nearly every day. Same device. Same location. On the days Mr. Covington worked from home." Celeste inhaled sharply, fingers trembling around her ring. 6 weeks. That was before Jonah ever helped me set up the new router. Before he convinced Celeste to check in on me more. Before he started telling her how much I'd struggled. Linda continued. "We also found a pattern matching 2 other fraud alerts flagged in neighboring counties." Rowan's head lifted slightly. "There's a pattern?" he asked. "A growing one," Linda said. "And the name linked to the secondary contact has appeared before." She slid a form toward us. My stomach tightened. Celeste leaned forward. "That's not Jonah's name." "No," Linda said. "And that's what concerns us." Rowan stepped closer to the table, eyes narrowing at the form. His tone dropped to something almost too soft. "I've seen this name." Jonah's head snapped up. Rowan continued, voice calm but razor-sharp. "This person was flagged in 2 identity exploitation cases last year. Targeting seniors. Using intermediaries. Always through financial access." He turned to Jonah. "You know them." Not a question. A fact. Jonah didn't speak. But the tiny twitch in his jaw answered for him. Celeste covered her mouth. "Jonah, you said you didn't know anyone involved in stuff like this." His silence was louder than any denial. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked open. "I trusted you," she whispered. "I trusted you with my home. With my life. With my father." Her voice trembled harder. "And now I don't even know what's real. I don't know which memories are mine. And which ones you put there." A tear fell. "You didn't just lie to me. You used my love as a weapon." Jonah flinched. Not because he regretted it. But because her words hit the exact part of him he didn't want touched. The part that needed control. He stood slowly. Too slowly. Rowan shifted immediately, hand brushing his radio. "Sit down," Rowan warned. Jonah didn't look at him. He looked at me. Then Celeste. Eyes cold. Flat. Calculating. "You think this is about money," he said quietly. "You think this is about a house." A strange half-smile flickered, eerie, hollow. "You have no idea what you've stepped into." Celeste shivered. Rowan took a step forward. "Who else is involved, Jonah?" Jonah didn't blink. "I'm not the one you should be afraid of." That line landed like a blade. Linda cleared her throat. "There's one more detail." She turned another page. "The attempted second account, the one created in Mr. Hale's name, didn't just have a secondary contact. She pointed to a section at the bottom. There's a note in the system. A digital marker. She paused. This accomplice has filed similar attempts. In 3 other counties. Celeste's face drained. Rowan's expression hardened into something I hadn't seen before. Cop mode, full and unfiltered. This isn't a domestic dispute, he said. This is organized financial exploitation. Jonah stared at Rowan blankly. Then. He smiled. A small, eerie smile. Stillness again. The kind that made my skin crawl. Jonah leaned back slowly, resting his hands on his knees. No fear. No guilt. Just a cold, unnerving calm. Ray, he said softly. You think you're winning. His voice dropped to a chilling whisper. But this isn't over. Not with me. Not with them. Celeste grabbed my arm. Rowan stepped closer, eyes locked on Jonah. Jonah didn't breathe. Didn't blink. Just stared. Like a man already imagining what comes next. And in that terrible, unnatural calm, I finally understood. Jonah was never the danger. He was only the doorway to it. And whatever waited on the other side was already coming. After Linda and Rowan finished collecting evidence, the air in the living room shifted. Not just tense. Heavy. Like grief sitting on everyone's shoulders. Jonah hadn't moved from the far corner of the couch. He sat perfectly still, hands resting lightly on his knees, posture unervingly composed. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't unraveling. He was waiting. Celeste sat opposite him, her entire body curled inward. Eyes red, lips trembling, hands twisting her ring so tightly her knuckles had gone white. And me. I couldn't keep still. I kept pacing near the window, looking out at the quiet street. Trying to understand how much of our lives Jonah had rewritten. Before we noticed the ink was his, not ours. Rowan stood between all of us, back straight, jaw set. But when he glanced at Jonah, there was the faintest flicker of tension in his eyes. A cop who'd finally realized this wasn't a simple domestic case. The house phone rang. A sharp, slicing sound that made Celeste flinch hard. Rowan held up a hand. Don't touch it. He answered. Norton Hills PD. A soft, smooth voice replied. The kind of voice that smiled while it lied. Well, officer. I was hoping to speak with Raymond Hale. My name. Spoken like he'd been practicing it. Rowan's posture tightened. Identify yourself. A low chuckle. Oh, come on. You've seen the paperwork. You already know. My stomach nodded. Rowan's grip on the phone subtly tightened. A single bead of sweat forming at his temple. A small moment of fear. The voice continued, almost bored. Raymond's son-in-law is sloppy. Raymond, you are not. We've been watching that. Celeste covered her mouth in horror. Watched? Before Rowan could speak, the man added. I've been patient with you, Ray. More patient than you realize. The line clicked dead. Rowan lowered the phone slowly. This isn't local, he muttered. This man isn't afraid of law enforcement. He turned to Jonah. How long have you been talking to him? Jonah didn't answer. He didn't even look at Rowan. He finally lifted his eyes. And looked only at Celeste. Like she was the one who owed him something. Her voice came out raw, cracked open. Jonah, that man knew my father's name. He didn't respond. She swallowed hard. You brought someone like that into our lives. Jonah breathed in through his nose, slow and controlled. You asked me to build stability, he said. You don't get stability without partners. Partners, she whispered. That man was watching my father. Jonah stepped toward her. Rowan instantly shifted, hand grazing his radio. But Jonah didn't look at Rowan. Only her. I did what I had to, Celeste. The version of you I built was stronger than this. Celeste recoiled as if struck. That line. That one line. Told her everything she needed to know about their entire relationship. Her voice broke. You didn't love me. You shaped me. Jonah's jaw flexed. You're being dramatic. Celeste finally snapped. No. You controlled my fears, Jonah. You controlled my judgments. You controlled my memories. She pressed her hands to her chest. And I let you. I let you because I thought you were the safe one. Her knees nearly buckled. I don't even know who I am when you're not speaking for me. That was the real collapse. The one manipulation leaves behind. Not anger. Not panic. Identity damage. I stepped forward. You used my daughter because she trusted you. Because she believed in you. Jonah tilted his head, studying me like a specimen. Ray, he said calmly. You really think any of this scares me? I leaned closer. You should. He blinked once. A slow, calculating blink. I could feel Celeste's hand reach for mine from behind. Rowan shifted his stance, ready for anything. Linda cleared her throat, lifting another page from her folder. There's more, she said softly. Celeste turned to her with swollen eyes. Linda continued. The man who called. His name appears in 3 active investigations. She paused. All connected to elder exploitation. All using intermediaries. All following the same pattern Jonah used. Celeste's eyes filled again. Jonah, you weren't following him. Linda nodded. You were working for him. Jonah's calm finally cracked. Not with fear. With offense. My involvement is different, he hissed. Ray wasn't supposed to fight this hard. A low engine rumbled outside. Rowan's head snapped to the window. Another engine followed. Then a synchronized idle. 2 cars. Not neighbors. Not visitors. The hairs on my arms rose. Celeste whispered. Oh God, they're here. Rowan carefully moved toward the window, then stopped mid-step. Because he saw something. A silhouette in the passenger seat. Still. Unmoving. Watching the house. Not a threat rushing in. A threat waiting. Jonah slowly leaned back, hands resting lightly on his knees again. That calm returning. The dangerous calm. You've been thinking this was about one house, he said softly. His eyes lifted to mine. It's so much bigger than that. And in that moment. With 2 cars idling in silence outside. And Celeste clutching my arm like a child again. I realized Jonah was never our storm. He was just the whisper. Before something far larger. Finally spoke. The 2 cars outside kept idling, engines humming like a warning buried beneath the night. Celeste stood beside me, clutching my arm tight enough that I could feel the tremor in her bones. Officer Rowan's hand hovered near his radio, every inch of him alert, calculating. And Jonah. He sat back down on the couch as calmly as if nothing outside mattered at all. No panic. No anger. Just that strange, distant quiet, the kind a man reaches when the lie is over and there's nothing left to defend. Jonah, Rowan said evenly. This is your last chance to tell the truth. All of it. Right now. Jonah didn't look up. He pressed a hand over his eyes, rubbing hard, like someone trying to push away a migraine that had been growing for months. You think I wanted this? He whispered. You think I woke up one day and chose to dismantle a family? Celeste's breath caught. Rowan stepped closer. Then explain it. Jonah exhaled, a long, fracturing release, as though something inside him finally tore loose. It didn't start with Ray, he murmured. It didn't even start with you, Celeste. His voice wavered. It started when I owed someone. Someone who doesn't let debts go. He lifted shaking hands. I couldn't pay him back. Not the way he wanted. Celeste whispered, "Who is he?" Jonah shook his head sharply. You don't understand. They don't care about people. They care about access. About leverage. About getting inside a life quietly. A cold twist tightened in my stomach. Celeste wrapped her arms around herself as if she were freezing. Jonah's voice cracked. You were the first person who ever believed I could be more than my past, he said to Celeste. I didn't want you to hate me. Celeste's face broke. Jonah. I believed in you because I trusted you. And you used that trust to hurt my father. He shut his eyes. I know. I know. His words shook violently. But I was drowning. And he offered me a ladder, if I climbed it using someone else's back. He looked at me, eyes bloodshot. Ray. I didn't want to take your house. I didn't want any of this. I didn't speak. Because for the first time, Jonah looked less like a predator. And more like a hostage to his own choices. Outside, the first car's headlights flickered once. Not a call. Not a threat. A reminder. Jonah flinched. That's him, he whispered. They want me to come outside. They want to know if I still belong to them. Celeste stepped back instinctively. Rowan tensed. You're not going anywhere, Rowan said firmly. Not with them. Not tonight. Jonah let out a small, broken laugh. You think you can protect me? You don't understand what he does to people who fail him. His voice dropped. And I failed him. Jonah covered his face. I forged the transfer requests, he said. I changed the codes. I staged the confusion. I fed Celeste lies. His voice unraveled. I kept the plan alive because I was afraid. And because I was weak. Celeste's tears fell silently. You weren't weak, she whispered. You were cruel. Jonah exhaled, a final surrender. Rowan stepped closer, resting a steady hand on Jonah's shoulder. That's enough, he said softly. You're done running someone else's script. Jonah didn't resist. He simply nodded, hollow, defeated. Rowan reached for his radio. I need backup on Brookside Lane. 2 vehicles. He stopped. The engines outside dimmed. Then faded completely. No confrontation. No escalation. Just a quiet message. We'll be back. Rowan lowered the radio. They won't risk a scene tonight. Jonah stood on unsteady legs. Celeste, he whispered. I'm sorry. She swallowed hard. I know. But sorry isn't the same thing as safe. That line broke him deeper than any accusation. Rowan guided Jonah toward the hall. Jonah didn't fight. Didn't bargain. Didn't beg. He walked like a man finally exhausted by his own deception. Just before leaving, he looked at me one final time. I wasn't supposed to lose, he murmured. Men like him don't let us lose. He wasn't warning me. He wasn't excusing himself. He was telling the truth. The door closed softly behind them. Celeste collapsed against my shoulder and cried in a way I hadn't heard since she was little, raw, helpless, grieving the life she thought she had. And as I held her, listening to the quiet house breathe again, I understood something simple and solid. Jonah was gone. The case was open. The danger still existed. But for the first time since this nightmare began, the house finally felt like ours again.